Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am ManyNinjas. Welcome to episode 0 of Retro Ninja Gamer. Rather than start with a regular classic game, I'm actually going for this nice little remake of an old Christmas themed Mega Man fan game made back in 2010 off the top of my head by Ace Spark. To my understanding, this particular remake takes the engine used for the sequel and updates the first game with it, along with tossing in some extra achievements. And that is one seriously pissed off looking Santa Claus, aka Dr. Light. How do you know he's angry? Just look at him. He has fangs now, and exclamation points in his eyes. I don't know about you, Santa Light, but I'm pretty sure saving the world counts for something. While I give blues points for effort here, we do have to remember that in terms of disguises, Wily's not exactly too good at them. After all, you want some evidence? Think Mr. X. What was that? Wily with sunglasses and a fake goatee. Hello there, Base. Mega Jerk? Really? Come on now. Also, I probably should have a capital I, but that's just nitpicking there. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the intro to MegaMan's Christmas Carol Remix. Alright, let's start up a new game there. Already have my name entered at this point. And I believe we're doing this run with, actually we're going to go with Mega Man on this one. And we'll be playing through on the hard difficulty. Just in full disclosure, this is not a completely blind run. I was playing just a bit of this game lately in order just to test recording, and pretty much that was about it. Starting off with the Ghost of Christmas Past at this point. During the test recordings, this would be the boss I tended to start with, just because it was an entertaining little fight there. As we come there, you notice there's quite a few little cameos from the other games going on there, which is pretty much the theme of this particular boss. Pick up the weapon tank and let's move onward. Now to note, the boss will be vulnerable at basically all times unless a certain Robot Master, aka the one that just popped up, Plant Man, comes in order to provide him with a shield to work with. And those statues up top can actually be turned into full-fledged bosses, or at least light versions of the original Robot Masters that you also have to contend with on top of the ones he summons normally. What that means, of course, on top of fighting the Ghost of Christmas Past and the assorted bosses he summons, is that you can also fight, although a slightly neutered version of each, you can also end up fighting a version of Heat Man, Toad Man. The third boss there is actually Volt Man from the PC games, as well as Nitro Man, who is currently racing across the screen right now, up and down, making himself a nice little obstacle I have to dodge on top of everything else. Fortunately for those that happen to have this particular boss's weakness, you can actually take care of all the duplicate bosses, as well as the main boss himself, Christmas Past, with the same master weapon. Or two, as you might learn later on. When defeated, the Ghost of Christmas Cast gives us Past Minion, aka we get the ability to summon our own version of Skullman, Woodman, Solar Man, as well as Uranus from the Game Boy games. As a side note, yes, each character gets their own little quote before the actual weapon description. As for the scoring screen, while the author describes the actual naming of the bonuses as being nondescript, they actually refer to specific things. I believe power bonus regards your health, copy bonus involves the amount of tanks you have, mega bonus, or the appropriate name, only occurs if you happen to beat the boss Buster only, and the other ones are kind of difficulty based, I believe, off the top of my head. Moving onward, now we move to Ghost of Christmas Present. As you can see on the left there is a nice little E-tank, but you actually need Jacob Marley's weapon in order to actually get that weapon. Which I don't happen to have, but screw it, let's proceed. Speaking of Marley's weapon, you would also remove that little shield that happens to be rotating around Christmas Present at the moment. But even with the shield present, it almost never reflects anything as far as I can tell, and you can pretty much get around it fairly easy enough. The boss's general attack sequence is jumping around on and off screen, dropping off the nice little Christmas ornaments that explode, and occasionally chucking the explosive present, which you'll end up getting as your version of the master weapon. Admittedly, I got myself hit a few too many times there, but the boss really isn't that hard. In case you're wondering what the item in the upper right corner was, that refers to the achievement system that goes on in this game. You get a regular or plastic medal in order for just beating the boss. If you beat the boss buster only, you get the bronze. If you go without getting hit, you get the silver. And for the gold and platinum versions, I believe you have to do it without being hit on hard or harder difficulty. Being that harder one being what, which is a beast of its own then. In terms of this game, what difficulty should really be named Contra difficulty, because quite frankly you only have one hit. You get hit once, you're dead. That's it. Now, in my infinite wisdom, rather than go for Jacob Marley, which is honestly a much easier boss, I decided to try and go with the Ghost of Christmas Future, which unfortunately is going to turn out to be a very bad idea. As you can guess, considering the weapon we just got, you'll want to use the Neo Present Surprise in order to get the nice little E-tank there. And although the author insists that you can have an easier time actually taking the buster shots from Mega Man or Proto Man in order to take down this boss, it still requires basically shooting at the absolute top part of your jump and hoping that Christmas Future here has dipped down just far enough in order for you to actually hit him. As for how this particular boss works for the most part, you'll notice at all time the nice little flying skies will be going across the screen there, and there goes the first of, unfortunately, several deaths on this particular boss. The blue skies will just kind of aim straight for you after they materialize, but there will also be a red version that will try to take a few turns after a few intermittent stops and get you that way, which will be the one he ends up coming back to you, throwing your way more often than not. As long as that timer is going up there, he'll just be hanging up just barely within shooting range, so hypothetically every boss or every playable character can shoot him down before that nice little countdown goes down. But for the most part, you have a better shot of kind of just waiting him out until the timer does go down, which he'll come into regular range in order to be shot at. Once that timer expires, the fight honestly gets a lot easier, because although he'll be closer to you, and thus his red retractable skies will be having a much better chance of hitting you at that range, you will also be in a range where you can shoot him at any time without worry, not having to time it just at the top of your jump. Rather than subject you to what was honestly some fairly bad gameplay there trying to get through this one damn boss, which I swear is actually harder than the final boss in this game, we're just gonna speed through this footage a bit. Seriously, I don't think even Wily would have built something like this. Ah yes, that death was particularly annoying. And yeah, I believe this is the point where I call it a day on this particular boss, at least for the moment being. Let's see what Marley's up to. Anything just to get away from this one damn boss. And as lampshaded in one of the other characters' runs, it kind of seems odd that Jacob Marley has a ball and chain when last I checked he only had shackles in the actual story. Now in order to get that one E-tank up there, you need to use the Ghost of Christmas Past assorted weapons. In this case, Uranus to make the upward shot that will break that boulder there. And as you can probably guess, Solar Man to light that one last torch in order to get this elevator back up and running. And now with that obtained, let's proceed to a much easier boss than Christmas Future. To be entirely frank, unless you really wanted that E-tank, which in this case I did, even though I almost never use the damn things, you can honestly start with the Ghost of Jacob Marley here as your first boss. As aside from just making sure to jump over the returning ball of the ball and chain there's honestly not much to him. Sure, I took a few careless hits on the way there, but even then I'm not particularly afraid of losing to this particular boss. After that nice refreshing break of a boss, now we take Marley's Shackle here, which is pretty much a chain weapon that we would have needed to get the E-tank out of the wall on Christmas Presents pre-stage, or kind of pre-boss room, whatever you want to call that thing is. Now we can go back and dispose with Christmas Future once and for all. And this time it should be really very different because I don't want to include 2 death montages in the same video. And to imagine, Christmas Future, as it is in this particular version, is a nerfed version of it. Because beforehand, he really was completely out of range of both Mega Man and Proto Man until after the timer went down. Unless, of course, you use certain master weapons to get to him. Alright, after some off-screen tests to see if there was actually a master weapon that actually worked well against this guy and coming to the conclusion that no, nothing really works too well that I happen to have here, we're just going to proceed to just use the Buster on him. As far as I can tell, that's the only thing that can reliably hit him, and for a decent amount of damage. Suffice to say, the Christmas present as a weapon was kind of out of the question. You have to basically be beside him in order to get it to actually make contact, and most of the case, you'll actually miss with him being at this height. And Marley's Shackle doesn't seem to reach high enough, if that is the weakness. And after many trials and tribulations, the future is no more. We can now carry on with our lives. Or at least in this case, move on to the Wily stages. Actually, would they be called the Wily stages in this case? So far, there's no Wily. We can move on to the Light stages? The Santa stages, perhaps. Well, wherever it is, we're going there next. Suffice to say, this particular run went by a lot smoother, even with the test runs just to see if any of the weapons actually worked well, which, by the way, they didn't. This was technically only the 3rd run there. Unfortunately, you need to get less than that in order to actually get any of the appropriate bonus. Indeed, with all four bosses down, we can now move to Mysterious Foe, in which he has an actually really nice looking tower there. This is actually a really well designed and goes well with the NES palette. Nice work to the person who designed this. Moving onward, we now enter Misery Tower, which, despite the ice on the ground, there are no actual ice physics here. We make use of Marley's Shackle in order to get rid of the shield as well as the Joe in a hurry. The reason to do that is because it's actually really hard to get through Joe. This is a nice hidden opponent there. If you had picked up all the previous E-tanks here, you would also get an extra achievement for collecting all of the items. But since I did skip that one E-tank, it didn't pop up in this case. This particular boss fight is actually a 2-parter here, starting off with a Snow Miser, who will be coming from the left of the screen, who will chase you down while trying to hit you with some kind of a rolling fire attack, although really it should be a rolling ice attack, as well as shooting the occasional bouncing snowball and a quick 3-pronged shot, if you happen to be within the general range there. Hopefully not too bad to get a hold of, or get through I should really say, which leads you to the second part of the fight, the Heat Miser. Fortunately for us, he has no kind of ground attack like the Snow Miser does, But he does have these homing shots that come out of the top of his head, as well as these nice kind of rolling fireballs, which you can jump over, but it gets a bit more difficult when you're trying to dodge all the things at once. Fortunately, he's also weak to this guy and goes down quickly enough. And now with those two down, we move on to the next of the light stages, which is still really awkward for me to say. Still seems out of place. Ace Spark here is really messing with the formula. I really want to say Wily stages, but at this point, Wily has not even made an appearance in this title, so you can't exactly do that, now can you? Anywho, we'll get past the score screen in just a quick moment as it grants up the current bonus and adds up the last of it. There we go. And we move back to this very fancy looking tower here and move on to the next stage, which is actually the last stage of this particular game. While he has some really irritating bosses along the way, at least Light is much more to the point with his tower design. There's nothing particularly special in this pre-boss room as far as I know, so just proceed to the right and get to the actual fight itself. As this is the last stage of the game, you're expected to go through a little gauntlet of enemies, which in this case has you with 2 guard sentries to start off with. Now for the most part, the shot patterns are actually fairly simple, going the same kind of circular pattern you would see in a lot of Wily machines. But in addition to that, they have a bit of a Christmas themed weaponry with exploding plum shots, as far as I could tell. If you happen to carefully aim these and push them along with your own buster shots, you can knock them back into the other sentry in order to get a little extra damage from the explosion. Or at least I believe that's how it works, it looks that much. Now if you're aiming to play this particular fight a bit on the smart side, you really want to wear them down at about the same pace, because once you knock one of the guns down, it will actually take out the flooring beneath it, and summon this little extra helper that will actually try to suck you into the hole that has now been created. And of course, while you're avoiding that, you also have to take care of the other gun. Fortunately, since I took care of them both at roughly the same time, you can now proceed to the Santa Machine. In this case, the Santa Machine has a few fairly straightforward patterns here. That left eye there shoots out a series of kind of trailing shots. The mouth itself will shoot a couple of toy tanks. And make sure you do not stand near the wall of whatever direction Wily is looking at. Damn it, I really want to say whatever direction that Light is looking at, because those spikes on his fisted hand will kill you in a single touch. Off the top of my head, I believe when you actually defeat the tanks in other modes, they'll actually drop power-ups in the form of either weapon or even energy capsules that will actually help refill you along the way. And in this case, since it's on hard mode, no such luck. This general fighting pattern will continue until you at least get to around half-life, in which case there will be a change in pattern. Now to be just a little bit more from here, I believe the next buster shot. Yeah, that did the trick there. Suddenly the covered up eye has now been revealed. You no longer have to contend with the tank at this point, but the eye has a special little attack of its own, which will become apparent very shortly. Or at least it would have if the future Sky didn't destroy it in a hurry. What is actually supposed to happen there is that the glowing eye will actually shoot out that nice little round shot that will attempt to kind of bounce and pursue you for at least a good couple of seconds. Now that we know how to generally dispose of it in a hurry though, it shouldn't be too much longer now. Oh, and before anyone asks, the reason I wasn't using the future Sky from the get-go in order to hit Light is as long as the jaw was actually present, you would block all the Scythe shots. I do suppose that the nice little sentries here do have their own weakness which could be exploited, but quite frankly they still go down easy enough to the bus so that it isn't worth too much extra hassle in order to actually find out what their weakness is. Once again, the general idea is to wear them down at about the same pace so that when one of them finally does go down and take down the holding with it, I can easily just shoot off a couple of shots and kill the last one in a hurry. I suppose since it does take damage, you could also get rid of that nice little vacuum that does appear on the side where the first sentry went down, but that probably require a lot more effort. Alright, sentry's down once again. Please welcome back the Light Machine. In case you haven't noticed, there is in fact a reason why I happened to jump at the beginning of that little sequence there. It's because when the machine originally starts firing, it'll aim for where you were at the time, which in this case is in the middle of the air, and this will help waste one of its shots, so you'll be able to move around with a bit more freedom rather than possibly get trapped in a corner. Mind you, if you're a little careless and forget to dodge properly out of the way, then that's your own problem there. Alright, Satellite, take out wall number 2, please. Excellent. We can jump safely back on top, take our next little pot shot at you, and continue the pattern anew there. At this point, it's more rote memorization of just where the pattern will gently take you, rather than any real difficulty. Now, and I guess that kind of disproves what I was saying earlier, you still will get weapon energy on this particular difficulty, just no life. Which is why I'm using the 1E tank on this particular run, just because I really don't want to die at this point. I'm fairly certain that once I get that jaw down, this particular boss is as good as done. Especially since I know how the weakness works at this point. Alright, please extend your hand again, Dr. Light, thank you very much. This next one should take out the jaw, there we go. Equip the future slice, or the future scythe, and just making sure that I remember to actually dodge the shots before I start throwing the scythe out willy-nilly, and no, you're effectively done. I don't even need to jump on top of the hand, because of where I'm aiming, that nice little I wouldn't do anything, and you're gone, Dr. Light. Certainly not the highest score possible, probably due to the many deaths on Christmas Future, but at least I do get the achievement out of the Hog Bomber for beating the game on hard mode, and we now have MegaMan's hard mode ending. I believe since this is being played on hard mode right now, and just completed on hard mode I should say, it should actually display the character's real ending. If you beat the game on normal or easier difficulties, it'll give you a fake ending that will urge you in order to play on hard or above, before they give you something that's a little more legit or satisfying. And I believe Dr. Light is about to learn that his plan was not well thought out, and this will end very, very badly for him. And down goes the good doctor. Minus that one boss, this was actually a fairly fun little jaunt. Good place to start off kind of as a preview episode, I'd say. Thanks to Ace Spark for developing this whole thing. Can't say I'm too terribly surprised to see N64 Mario's name on there somewhere. It's an odd little fellow that I recall from the Mutant days, or however you pronounce that damn thing. And of course the nice little rest of the left sauce. I wonder that Sven is the Sven that I'm thinking of off the top of my head. I wouldn't be surprised considering that they do mention a few odds and ends from Capcom here and then. Goings of my own little universe. I am ManyNinjas now has an official Twitter account at ManyNinjas. For starters there. I'm continuing to work on the last of the Double Dragon Neon series on the Double Dragon difficulty, which hopefully, barring any surprises, will actually be going through just before the new year, if not on New Year's Day. And as for the I Am ManyNinjas website, yeah, let's not talk about that until at least January 1st. On that note, I'd like to thank you all for tuning in to the first kind of preview episode for Retro Ninja Gamer. And under the off chance that I don't get it done in time, which is hopefully very unlikely, I just want to wish you all a Happy New Year. Thanks for watching once again, and see you next time.